Great. Okay, great. So welcome. This is Senate Institutions. Today is Friday, February 13th. And we are here today. We have two items. We're going to first hear from folks from Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition, and then hear from Vermont Natural Resources Conservation Districts. So it's a good day to appreciate what is happening physically in Vermont. So who is going first? Is it?
Is it me?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you can sit there, and then we'll identify ourselves, Wendy Harrison, Wyndham District. So hopefully some of the world we'll talk about is in my district.
It should be it. Rob, I'll get Pennington District.
Joe Major, Windsor.
Center Russia Hills, Essex District, Northeast Kingdom, we like to call it.
Which is actually very similar in terms of housing and geography to the central part of Wyndham County. We find that in the school redistricting committee. Fun fact. Yeah. Okay, and
There's another fun fact. We're not cousins.
we don't know that. Or you probably did. Okay. So, Marion, if you want to just introduce yourself for the record.
Okay. My name is Marion Major. I'm with the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust based in Brattleboro, Vermont. Thank you so much for having us today. So the Housing Trust is a member organization of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition. This group is comprised of long-standing nonprofits, of businesses, of volunteer groups across the state that bring VHCB funds into our communities for long-lasting impacts. You go to the next slide. So today's ask is, next slide, please. To fully fund VHCB's statutory share. So on the slide, you can see a lot of impacts and a lot of numbers and how these funds really get funneled into communities to make permanent differences. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to kind of talk generally, but you can see more information on the slides. But I do want to share how deeply critical it is that we as implementers and you all as policymakers see the intertwining nature of both the housing and conservation missions. To put it simply, as human communities living in the landscape, one that is changing drastically, that's experienced flood, smoke, and last summer made us question wildfire. Considering one within the other is absolutely crucial. I also want to highlight the value of the perpetuity within these funds and these projects. In conservation, that's what a farm, a trail system, a stream that's protected forever. In housing, that's a safeguard against gentrification, and it creates a resource that's available not only for a few years, but for our community members to access even decades after we've made that initial investment. So today I'm going to give a tour of our region and projects that we've recently completed and projects that are upcoming, just to put a fine point on how these funds are used. So first up is Alice Hallway Drive in Putney. This is an extremely exciting project. It's 25 new permanently affordable homes. And I think that this project does a really good job of exemplifying a few things. It shows the variety of projects that VHCB funds. It shows how VHCB has staying power and partnership in projects. So first of all, in this picture, you can see some green space there that are kind of chopped up into squares. That's community gardens and farmers market space. VHCB funded that, so the group now owns their land that they are on, and so they are permanently protected on that space. VHCB also funded our Alice Hallway Drive apartments, those two buildings, which are now under construction. The staying power was that we got the permits in 2022. And for the last 3 years have been stuck in appeals and finally are well underway in construction and excited to open the applications on Tuesday. And we'll have a big party this summer. I just also added a few more details here about how some of these units are set aside for folks exiting homelessness. And then it also exemplifies how this is workforce housing. The income eligibility of these goes way higher than a lot of people really contemplate generally. Next page.
Can I
Right.
just, yeah, we're,
The committee, 2022. What was the holdup with, planning and zoning?
Planning and zoning, it was beautifully aligned with the town plan and zoning. There was no variance. It was a neighbor who filed an appeal, two sets of appeals, and they both went to environmental court, Supreme Court. And then again, with the jurisdictional,
Opinion for Act 50, sir. Kathy Byer from Evernorth, co-partners with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. So unanimous decision of the Putney DRB, very solid support, not only the DRB, but the entire town. One neighbor appealed the DRB permit. We went all the way to the Supreme Court of that. And then unfortunately, we needed a jurisdictional opinion on that we were exempt from Act
Yeah,
50 because we were a priority housing project. And you are able to appeal a JO. So right back we went. It was kind of a double hitter.
Is the neighbor still there?
Yeah. He lives in a senior
I
subsidized.
just ran into her on a hiking trail.
yeah, and let me add to that. So I was on Senate Economic Development Housing when that was happening. We were going through the changes to Act 250, and the legislators on the committee tried, and we asked for a way for when a town is so obviously fine with the development that it not have to go through, that the developer not be able, or not the
Nuisance.
developer. Yeah, that either, because New Hampshire has a system where they get penalized if they lose. But the attorney said, no, we can do that. And then they said, Vermont Constitution requires that you have an appeal process. So I still think we could move the appeal process down to the town level. But that's a future thing. But no, we were unhappy about that.
Yes.
And I'm glad so this is a poster child for that.
Just out of curiosity, what was her issue?
Continuous
Traffic, yeah,
It was a technicality.
it's
She was cited in some articles talking about her feelings on it, but it's a technicality.
Right. She used a technicality, but what she said was she didn't like that as the entry into Putney. Because that was one of the things that she said in the papers. And she ran for office and didn't win. I mean, it was so clear that the community supported when
Thank you.
Do you know the actual cost per unit? Not what you're gonna rent the units out at, but what it actually cost you with all your appeals and so forth per unit, this cost.
I can't give you the per unit cost. Kathy might be able to get it off the top of her head. I know that throughout because of this delay and at this particular time in history, costs really escalated during those
It is
30
just a
year
piece of trying to create affordable housing is very difficult through the process. And so that's why I was curious to know what it actually cost you per unit to build
The
these
delay.
houses.
With the delay, the difference in the delay.
right,
Yeah.
because the delay increased the cost.
Yeah.
So that would be, if you do get those numbers,
And appeals are expensive because you have to have legal representation in the appeal processes. So, yeah, it all adds to the cost.
So next slide. Next is Holton Home in Rattleboro.
30 paid volunteers there.
Promise not to.
So this is a beautiful historic structure in Brattleboro in a wonderful neighborhood. We're really excited about redeveloping it. It's been used since the end of the 1800s until a few years ago was a senior living home. And then that operation scaled back to one of their other sites. And so we're really excited to turn it back into housing. And what makes this one really special, besides the gorgeous nature of it and the neighborhood itself, up to 5 units will be set aside for folks who are individuals living with developmental delays and their in-home shared living providers. We were kind of inspired by this very local group of aging parents of children with developmental disabilities and really wondering what the next step was for them, because there's very few options. There's a named 600 deficit homes across the state. So this is, 5 is not 600, but it's a step. And so we're really excited to be moving forward with that. Hopefully breaking ground this fall.
It's wonderful.
Do you know, are you gonna, are your renovation costs gonna trigger you full compliance? So if
It's
your
not a
renovation,
change of use.
right, it's not
Yeah.
a change in use, but if your cost for renovations exceed a certain percentage of value, then you're required to bring the building into full compliance with current standards. So I don't know whether you looked
Yeah.
at that.
It
That can
will be
add
a pretty thorough,
significantly.
Yeah.
You'll have to have an elevator, you'll have to bring it into compliance with all the current energy standards.
Yeah, we've done a lot of
Very
the
strict.
feasibility where we've
I
started.
mean, I'm all in favor of reuse. It's just sometimes our rules work against us to basically be able to reuse existing facilities.
And luckily we've gone through the feasibility.
And-
of the-
And that's what Windsor specializes in too, is rehab, I think.
We've done a lot of it
older
throughout the
buildings,
years. Yeah.
which keeps the character of the community intact. So
Yeah.
that's a benefit to the community that we don't measure, but it's tangible.
Next slide, please. So the next one is going to be 316 South Street in Springfield. This is an exciting project that we just finished up. It's a brand new modular home, single family shared equity home, which is just new and exciting and kind of playing to our strengths of both shared equity and housing development. And this family, you can see they wrote a nice note about what this means to them. But this family had been impacted by flooding a few years ago and then had to move to a 3rd-story walk-in where they require accessibility. And so now they're living in this highly energy efficient home, which they own, which is thoroughly accessible. So just really big impact, makes a lot of difference. And it won't just be affordable for them since it's in the shared equity program. That initial investment rolls over in perpetuity without additional taxpayer funds. Next slide, please. So this is a really exciting and transformative redevelopment. So the chalet we purchased in 2020 on an emergency timeline in response to COVID and created permanent supportive housing there with the intention of redeveloping the site for creating more housing in the future. We're really excited finally to be at the phase where we're moving forward with that plan. The full vision is 70 homes on this site. We're going to start with phase 1, which there is a 31 unit multifamily housing building in the back of the lot. The current residents will be relocated there. So it's housing retention. And then we'll have 8 single family home ownership opportunities, all shared equity. Another multifamily home housing building and some townhouse, like a row of townhouses. And then we'll also be able to preserve this really iconic structure of the chalet, which looks like 8 chalets. It's named after the very just iconic architecture. So it's workforce, it's supportive housing, it's accessibility, it's traffic safety. In creating this design, we brought together residents on the site and residents in the neighborhood to name what their priorities were. And they called out that they would like increased accessibility, they would like pedestrian safety, and they'd also like access to green space. So that's all those we were able to incorporate into the design and create this really transformative new neighborhood vision, which includes new public transportation access, which
Thank you.
and we'll be breaking ground on it this summer. It was also named as a vital project in the Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategy, and also just received a congressionally delegated spending. So just really exciting project. Next slide. So, bricks and mortar are really important and last for generations. This is Historic Princess. She is an openly trans woman of color. She grew up in an abusive environment. She came to Brattleboro for a new start, to create a new community. And she moved into this home on Ellie Street, one of our historic redevelopments. We did not just redevelop this home. This home was redeveloped many decades ago, way before I was on the scene here. But it exists still. It exists in that affordability. And so she can access that apartment and create this new safe community. As you can tell, it's really been life-changing. And as I drive by, which I do very often, I see her with her neighbors just like laughing and creating this new community space. And it warms my heart. I really love it. Next page. So thank you for your strong support for VHCD and again, funding at the statutory share. This is a celebration this July of Central and Main in Windsor. And I think that it puts a fine point on, you can see Gus there representing VHCD, but you can also see a ton of other people. None of these projects are funded by a single source. None of these projects just take one person. It takes so much partnership, and the VHCD funds, through their partnership and leveraging all these other fund sources, make it all kind of come together and possible. So thank you very much, and I'll close it out there.
Thank you for your work. It's wonderful. Anybody else have questions? No. Thank you. So we have Chair Hannah Rieger. Rieger.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and this is the Bull Creek Common Lands.
Yeah, so my name's Hannah Regier. I'm the chair of the board of Bull Creek Common Lands. So we're a nonprofit. We're an all volunteer organization, and Deborah Clark, my colleague on the board, is there as well. So we are here obviously in support of VHCD funding. We are grateful recipients. Our most recent project, which you see a beautiful image of here, is the conservation of some land in the headwaters of the Bull Creek. And that has been in process for about 3 years and finally came to completion in November 2025. So just a few months ago, really. Let's see, next slide.
Beautiful. I need to go there. In my district.
You should definitely come. This is
Why wait till spring?
you can wait. Absolutely. This is a different view of the same pond, and this one 6-acre pond is part of a large 20-acre complex of wetlands in the headwaters area. There's also vernal pools, and there are diverse wetlands. There's forested wetlands, there's open wetlands. So they all hold different niches in our environment. So I just I'll talk about our budget a tiny bit since we're talking about money. So, and again, we're an all volunteer board. Our total project cost was $950,000. VHCB granted about a third of that, $315,000, which was split between the majority came to us for acquisition costs and some associated costs. And Vermont Land Trust also received some direct funding for the conservation easement that's on this 341 acres. We had some land donated and some sold at a bargain value. So that was another third or so of the budget. And the remaining third was made up of 6 different foundation grants and a bunch of individual donations from the community and further afield as well. So the next slide shows the context, and this is a watershed map of the state. The Bull Creek flows north into the Saxons River, which flows into the Connecticut River. And this area is in the southern Vermont Piedmont, and it's an area that has been identified as being critical for conservation by various organizations and entities. So it's in one of the Nature Conservancy focal areas. And this specific forest block that we're working in. It checks all of the highest priority boxes of Vermont conservation design. So highest priority interior forest block, connectivity block, surface water, riparian areas, and riparian activity. And there's also a number of rare and endangered species, and probably more than we've discovered so far. So the next slide will zoom into the watershed itself, and then you'll see the area outlined in pink is this project. So it was 3 separate parcels. It bridges the Townsend and Athens town line. And the pond is the pond that we were looking at in the photo. So that is really the body of water at the headwaters of the Hopewell Creek, which flows to the east and then to the north. And you'll see there's also the forested wetland in the middle and the open wetland in the southwest there. You'll see also a new section of trail that's connecting an old road that ran along the Bull Creek out to another old road in Townsend. So we're able to provide connectivity for hikers who had been using that already, but couldn't make it around the Beaver Pond complex on an actual road surface. The other thing I guess I'll point out is that what's outlined in green is also Bull Creek Common Lands, conserved lands of community forests that we conserved with the HCD support in 2022.
It's great. It's a beautiful area.
It is a beautiful area.
We'll say that.
Yeah. So the next few slides, I just want to go through some elements of the community impact. There's really been a ripple effect from our organization being able to purchase and conserve this land. It's land that people in the community have had access to for generations, for hunting, for exploring, for nature observation. And what we've seen happening so these 3 separate parcels went on the market separately. And what we tend to see is that when larger acreage goes on the market, it either is bought by like a commercial logging venture, or which is not necessarily bad for the community, but also private out of state kind of trophy home builders. And so that was definitely what was happening with at least one of these lots. And it's just really gratifying to know that, like, we will not post this land. People will continue to have access. We have a lot of support from the hunters who have hunting camps nearby, as well as the people who are, like ecologists and biologists, and know the value of the wetlands and the landscape there. And the next slide just shows a quick image of the trail. It doesn't look, this is the old road actually. We'll finish completing the trail in this coming spring. We do have a lot of moose and other animals wandering around our trails as well. Could be any number of animal prints that I threw up there. Yeah. It's just the next slide sort of addresses where we're working in the landscape and how we're aligning with the different planning objectives in the towns that we're working with. So both Townsend and Athens have a town plan, but no zoning. And we're working in the areas that are designated resource protection areas. This image shows the house lot that had been cleared before we bought this parcel from a lumber company. And so this could have potentially been a house, but not one that anyone in the local community could have afforded. And it would have involved building a very long road to get to a site that had a view of the headwaters pond. And we could have imagined that posted signs could possibly have gone up afterwards. So it's lovely to know that this will remain unfragmented and open to the public.
That's great. And you were able to address that pretty quickly, probably, because that sometimes those purchases can happen pretty fast.
Yeah, we were lucky. There was a neighbor of this parcel who let us know that he had chatted with someone from the lumber company who said that they were in here to flip this parcel. They were going to finish logging it, and they cleared a house site and like thinking about subdividing, weren't sure yet. And so we were able to get in and chat with them before it went on the market. And I mean, the details of the
Yeah.
transaction, we're always doing these things where like we had a purchase and sale contract that needed to be backed up by an appraisal because we have certain like obligations as a land trust to not pay more than appraised value for land. So we went through all of that and like, we didn't know it was gonna work out, but
Yeah.
good
For you. Thank you. Good for all of us and thank you. Did you have a? Field trip.
Yeah, so the next couple of slides are just sort of about this ripple impact and what it's allowed the community to do in reciprocity for the land. So this is people standing around looking at a ditch, which was created by.
That's what we did when we.
Right?
Our ditches are gorgeous.
But the soil that had been in that ditch ran off into the Bull Creek and out into the Saxons River, created some siltation somewhere because the loggers who had done work last on the property left without putting in water bars. And so we were able to go in, and this is showing the same view looking down with water bars in place to try to retain what was left of the topsoil. This is NRCS folks who helped us with this project. So even once we had a purchase and sale contract in place, the NRCS folks were able to come in and start helping us with the restoration work. And that was 2.5 miles of forest roads that we've restored and going into our second spring in good shape. And the next view is showing what the house lot looks like after it's grown in for a year. And we're doing some work protecting hardwood seedlings that are growing up naturally so that the deer don't browse them and they get a good start to regrow this area. So we're keeping an eye, we're doing a lot of management work with invasives and tree protection and trying to get the buffers going again to protect these wetlands that really act as sponges in the headwaters of the Bull Creek, which has flooded several times as we know in the last several years. So this won't stop the flooding, but it will do a lot to hold water when we get those massive storms. And the beavers themselves, this is the beaver channel, but the beavers themselves do a lot of that work for us. The next slide shows some historic features of the property. So this whole area is known by locals as the Turtle Lot, and the Turtle Lot or Turtleau family had multiple homesteads in this area from 1790s to the 1880s or 90s. And their name remained attached to the land. We're going to name the trail after their family. They were French Huguenot refugees and were teamsters and amazing stone builders. The stone wall is 6 feet tall, and this is one of their wells. So there's a state archaeological site designated now, and it's part of our conservation easement to protect the Turtle Lot legacy as well. And then the last piece of impact is just, it's like what lives there. This is the land. It's spectacular. It's remote. All of these more than human beings are thriving, and we hope that they can continue. And we also just hope that a lot of local people will find joy coming across this fen of rose begonias blooming, or the chestnut-sided warbler nest, and many, many more, the pair of gray foxes that we caught on the wildlife cameras. Those constituents are grateful as well to HCP funding.
We'll give them a break on their tax.
So this is where I will leave it. It's some of the other community voices. We've done some outreach and asking the local communities to let us know what they love about their neck of the woods, and also if they have questions or concerns about conservation. And these are some folks that folks indicated were okay to share anonymously. But a lot of alignment in wanting to preserve the beauty and the land for its own sake, and providing a balance of recreation and wilderness experience.
I didn't know that bald eagles were not common, because I see them a fair amount on the.
They were on the endangered species list for a long time.
Well, I mean, in the country, I was aware of that, but I guess I didn't know in Vermont that they went away and then they came back.
Yeah, I think
Makes
the DET, there was a paprika that pretty much, yeah, decimated them. I remember growing up.
Right, I
there
remember
and
that
they-
too, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it works, actually.
When you try to help, like life wants to live, right? All these animals and plants are doing everything they can to. Yeah.
Well, this is wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for considering funding the HCD in its full amount.
Now, did we fund it in the full amount last year? I think we did, but I think we might have done it with ARPA money or
Yeah, we had
something.
full
left
funding
over.
last year.
But that was the first year for a while, I think. That we,
Okay, now I get it.
I think that is correct.
okay.
Thank you.
So hopefully we can make it a trend, but it's not there yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Hello, I am Kim Fitzgerald, the CEO for Cathedral Square, and a little bit about Cathedral Square. We have 28 communities in Chittenden, Franklin, and Grand Isle counties. And those 28 communities, almost all of them had funding from VHCV. We're a little bit older than VHCV, so not all of our projects, but since once they started from beyond, because as everybody stated previously, we absolutely need those funds to be able to build our housing. And we also really like the and with the housing and conservation. We love being able to have walking paths and hiking trails, and especially because we serve mostly those 55 and older. And we have SASH, which stands for Support and Services at Home, which is a big component is that wellness. So again, we are very happy about the and. Again, we are happy that the governor's budget has the statutory amount in it, but I would say we need more, as what happened last year. And I understand the budget constraints. But Cathedral Square has 1,100 units of housing, which serves about 1,300 people. And we today have 1,300 people on our waiting list waiting to get in. It's absolutely crisis. We will celebrate our 50th anniversary next year. Cathedral Square will. And I'd say I could build tomorrow, but it's taken us 50 years to build and not even meet the need I'm seeing today on our waiting list. So that's a little bit on the housing side, but what I really wanted to talk with you all today about is on the programming side. So, and specifically as it relates to those exiting homelessness. So we have created a program called HIP, or a housing incentive program. And I want to give a little background. Cathedral Square has always been serviced and enriched. We have always housed people exiting homelessness, but we didn't really track it much in our early days because it didn't really matter much to us. And we've always served underserved, low-income folks. We are a nonprofit, and but in 2016, the governor put a mandate that anybody receiving public funding needed to house 15% of their portfolio needed to be coming from homelessness. And so at that point, we started tracking it and we started to prioritize those coming from homelessness on our waiting list. And so today we have over 200 people in our housing that has come from homelessness. And I suspect it's even higher than that because, of course, people who, before we started tracking, had also come in. And we do have people who live with us for 40 years. So this is about permanently affordable housing for the long term. So what we started hearing on the ground is that our staff were saying, we need some more support here. What I didn't say is when that governor's mandate went into place, there was no funding that came along with it. So it meant no extra services, nothing for the housing to help support housing those coming from homelessness. And so even though we had always done it, they of course need subsidy. So it really does start to concentrate some because not all of our properties have project-based subsidy. And the other thing we started to look at is our evictions. So in a year and a half period of time, we had 19 evictions started. I will tell you not all of them ended in eviction, but for Cathedral Square to have 19 evictions started in a year and a half is huge for us. I've been with Cathedral Square 26 years, and I can tell you, I don't think there was like 10 years where we were having 19 evictions started in a period of time. Eviction is absolutely the last resort. We work very hard with our residents to ensure that they don't get evicted. And what we found, I looked at, diving a little deeper into this, we realized that 12 of the 19 were formerly homeless people. And I said immediately to staff, we have to do better. We do not want to be a revolving door. And what you might not realize is if somebody moves, besides lots of other reasons too, right? But if somebody moves in from homelessness and then they are evicted, they lose their subsidy and it's near impossible to get that subsidy back. So that means they are worse off when they leave us than they were when they came to us. And so I said, we have to do better. We have to figure this out. And I will tell you, I have had people say to me, Kim, you have over 200 people in your housing who come from homelessness, having 12 evictions, not that big of a deal, but it's not a statistic we want, and we wanted to be able to do better. So we started looking and figuring out what can we do. So as I mentioned earlier, we created SASH, which stands for Support and Services at Home. Since 2009, we've had this model. We have it at all of our housing communities, includes care coordination and wellness nurse, all about prevention, healthcare services. In addition, we have partnered with our local designated agency, which is the Howard Center. And through the SASH model, we have embedded mental health clinicians in the housing. Really important model. We have federal funding for it right now. Unfortunately, that federal funding will end at the end of this federal fiscal year, so 9/30. And this is so that clinicians are where people live. I'm sure you've all heard about people riding along with the police, and I say get them in the housing where people live before behaviors escalate, before we have to have a call to the police. So really great model. I could talk all day about just that, but I will not. And so really great model. We would love to have continue to have it beyond 9:30. But in addition, Cathedral Square does have one staff member who is, we call her Shines, and it really is about success in housing. And so she is really targeted with helping anybody who's referred to her within our staff. And she can be dealing with somebody who, for example, let's say, is hoarding and is failing their properties, the housing inspection, all the way to somebody who may have schizophrenia. She has the whole gamut she's working with. And then what we just said is let's create a position who is specifically targeted to working with those coming from homelessness. And so we have a HIP manager now. And I will say in this picture, you will see Chuck, who is one of our success stories. He moved into our Howard Square property in South Burlington from homelessness, and he's now our resident manager helping the entire community. So
That is a great
huge
story.
success story, yes. And so how does this model work? So first I want especially this group to know that I did meet with quite a few folks to kind of get some ideas of what other people were doing. And so I met with the Vermont for Criminal Justice Reform about their contingency management program. And as you may be familiar with that, they actually give incentives for folks coming out of incarceration to check in on a weekly basis, and they pay cash. And then if they take a drug test, they give actually even more. So it's all cash incentive basis. So met with them, learned all about their program. I also met with Spectrum, who works with youth, who also was paying incentives, $1,500 a month. And that was really because they really wanted to pay for the rent in Burlington. They needed at least that much. And then I also used to serve on the A New Place board. And the New Place has a model of serving those, their shelter, serving those from homelessness. And they graduate upstairs once they're in the program for a while, and they start paying a little bit towards rent. And they put all of that rent money aside to be used for security deposit for when they're ready to move on to something else. And I will say Cathedral Square has housed quite a few people who've come from the new model. So kind of taking all these models in concert together, we came up with this. And so in order to be a HIP participant, you have to come from homelessness. That's the first thing. Then we have a menu of services. And I always say this is not a one size fits all. And so that menu of services is designed to be very open-ended, and what fits for one person, hopefully will also have other options to fit for somebody else. So somebody might, for example, decide that they're going to attend an AA meeting. That might be something they chose from the menu of services. Or somebody else might go to a training on budgeting or finances. Somebody else might say, I haven't spoken to my son in 5 years. I'm going to call my son. So all over the gamut. And if it's something on the menu of services that the participant doesn't see, like nothing's fitting for me this month, they can come up with an idea. And all we say is it has to benefit they themselves or their community. And so how it works is that if they complete one of the items on the menu of services and they are in good tenancy, meaning they have paid their rent and they do not have any lease violations, they actually get a cash incentive. So we pay them $50 cash in hand. We don't care what they do with it. It's not ours to know. And we put the other $50 in a bank account for them. And they can borrow, so this continues over time. It's a 5-year program, and they can borrow against the amount of money that's in the bank account. But the deal is if they borrow against it, they have to pay it back before they get the next incentive. They can also stay in the program even if they have a month where they don't maybe they do have a lease violation, something happened, or maybe they couldn't pay their rent. This doesn't have to be consecutive months. We all know we're all human, things happen. Somebody could have a health issue and have a health bill that they can't afford, and so they can't afford their rent. So again, we're there for them, no judgment, to support. And so this is a little bit about the incentives themselves. We highly incentivize the very first year, because we know that when you first move into a community, it can make or break your tenancy. You're learning how to live in that community. You're learning the rules, the house rules, the unwritten rules. You're meeting your neighbors for the first time. And we know that those first meetings, again, can go good or bad, right? So again, it's a 5-year model. We also did research to show that if somebody's behavior changes for 5 years, the likelihood that this will remain forever is very, very strong, or at least for a long time. Incentivize highly, like I said, in the first year, and then kind of wean off as the years go through. So the participants have the option really of earning just under $2,000, that will be paying out as time goes on. And then from their escrow account after the 5 year is complete. And again, it could be 60, it could be 65 months, or it could be 6 years. That doesn't matter, but then they can get what's in the escrow account for them. So in grand total, they have the opportunity to earn just under $4,000 by being in this program and actively participating. As I'm sure you know, this is that cost is less than a month and a half of being remote, right? So small dollars in the grand scheme of things, but really trying to change the system to be supportive and helpful. Our hope, we've been fundraising for this program. We have no other funding at this point. It's all been fundraising. Our hope is to serve 60 people. So we would have about $180,000 more to raise for the 5-year model. And currently we are serving 25 active participants in this model at these particular properties of Cathedral Square. And we have paid out 145 incentives so far, just totaling over $7,000. We have worked with 18 participants who were struggling to pay their rent, 5 of which had a notice to quit, meaning that their housing was in jeopardy. 13 of these have been completely resolved, including those 5 notice to quit. So nobody has a notice to quit right now of the participants, but we are still working with 5 people who are still struggling financially. We're trying to support them. 22 of the 25 participants have signed up for SASH, which we are extremely excited about, because this is a voluntary, obviously, sign up, and it is about wellness and support and training and education and programming and all those things. So, and then 15 participants have met with the mental health clinician at least once, and of course, some have met with them many more times than that. Good. And so a little bit of success, and then I will be wrapping up. So here are 2 brothers who actually live in Burlington and come from a rather large family in Burlington, John and James. And John said he had been living at a shelter while working 6 days a week. He said it was a very humbling experience and that he kept just pushing forward. And so when he got the call from us that he was going to get into a Cathedral Square apartment, he said he felt like it was a new chapter in his life. And then his brother James said this program, meaning the HIP program, has been life-changing. It's not just about having a roof over our heads. It's about this feeling secure and supported. We also do have a HIP video, which I will send you probably on Monday at this point, Friday afternoon.
That's fine.
But it has another participant and the HIP manager talking. And this participant on the video does talk about how it holds him accountable. He feels like he's being heard and seen for the first time, and that he really has a trusted kind of friend in the HIP manager. So we're very excited about the results we've had so far. And of course, as Cathedral Square typically does, we try things out, we pilot them, and if they work, we try to then expand them.
That is wonderful. Terrific. Thank you so much. I probably would have questions. I don't want to take your time either, but it's a wonderful program.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I had not heard of this one, so it's really good to know. And do you have housing in all of those counties or 28 towns?
So we have 28 properties in Chittenden, Franklin, and Grand Isle County.
Okay.
Yes. And then we are the creators and overseers of SASH. So we are statewide with the SASH model.
Yeah, and I am familiar with SASH, and SASH is wonderful. And talking about saving money, right? I mean, SASH is just so efficient.
Yes, exactly.
That's terrific. I just wanted to say, and I probably said this last year too, but just the VHCB having the conservation people and the housing people together, that was so smart of Vermont to do years ago. And I think sometime, it was about when they started Active 50, but it really helped reduce the conflict between developers and conservation folks. And just understanding that both things are important is just critical. And it's really now we need, it's good that we're here and we're structured that way
That's
because we're having those same conversations again.
yes.
Yeah.
We had a speaker this morning talking about in California, they're totally separate and
Right.
really hard to get kind of anything done, right? Because they're kind of at odds with each other.
Right. And they don't talk to each other. And right. And I was in Florida and it was not quite the same as California. The development process was better, but this is even better. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so the next folks are 2:15. That's what I have on mine. Thank you. All right, so we can take a break and you guys can go talk outside if you want to. So let's we're adjourned.